These are electrical bullet connectors. No. No. This is a male and this is a female. Just waiting to see if one of them wants to change their mind. G'day everybody, finally welcome back to the garage and back to the GS1000. It's been a while, I've been a bit time poor, and this time of year is a very busy time for everybody, I'm sure it is. It's Christmas functions and social gatherings and busy at work and all the other excuses that I could come up with. We had the ROT 10-year anniversary recently as well, and that took up another entire weekend. So here I am today trying to get some more work done on this GS1000 because Bill wants his bike back. And I don't blame the poor bloke, it's been dragging on for too long. For you guys that have been trying to follow the series, I imagine that's been a bit of a challenge as well, and I've copped a bit of flack down in the comments in the gobbledygoo. I keep telling people it's not my full-time job. What I have learned from this is that I probably would have been better off shooting this entire series and having it all finished and the bike handed back to Bill before I started releasing, and then I could have just regularly dropped one out a week. But that's not how it works. So right, where are we at? Let's get on with it. We need to put this. I've put the front wheel back in here for security purposes. It's sitting on this block under here and a little bit sketchy, so that's just sitting there. So we'll get about putting that back together now, and then we'll see what else we need to do. So we'll pop the axle holders back on. There was a bit of debate around how this sequentially how this should go together. A few people made some suggestions. I'll talk you through my thoughts, I guess, as I go. Now that's all sitting in there loose at the moment, and there was a little bit of commentary back and forth between a couple of you guys about how I should sequence this. Now, the suggestion is that the axle nut needs to be tightened first to pull everything together, and then we tighten the fork clamps. Now, I don't have issue with that. Doesn't need to be completely torqued up. Don't know. Look, I've just pulled that up by hand. They're all going to be together. If I tighten these these axle retainers at the bottom now and then torque the axle up, on this bike I don't think it's going to make a lot of difference, because that axle can spin in the little bushes that are being clamped on here. So it's almost like you've got two independent clamping forces. You've got the axle clamping through the centre that is keeping that spacer and the bearings and everything all locked together as a solid unit. And then you have each side, you've got the fork clamps, the lower leg clamps, that are holding that. My view on that is that it really shouldn't matter, because of the design, which sequence you do it up in. However, I'll take on board the advice that you guys have given, because I don't know for sure. Instinctively, I would just probably do up the axle and then do up those. I think last time I did those up and then did the axle up last. So either way, it's not going to bend the forks or anything because this is a set length. This is, you know, that was one thing I think someone suggested, that perhaps if we do up these first and then do up the axle nut, that we'll be forcing the forks and possibly risk bending at the top of the stanchion here at the lower leg clamp. I don't think that would happen because, as I said, they're a fixed length, so it's been designed so that when these are all clamped up and everything's locked together, it's all the same. So, but I'm going to do the axle up first. This is still set at 37 foot-pound from the last time I did this. Right, I've lined up the split pin hole. I found a packet of split pins, so I can pop that one in later. These guys. Now again, sequentially, the suggestion is, and I think it was from a guy, sorry, I can't remember who it was, but they suggested that they were taught as a mechanic to do the rear bolts up first and then do the front bolts up. Nuts on studs, not bolts. Now, it's taking these to 11 foot-pound. And then to 18. Very long, but we can shorten it. Good enough for the girls I go out with. All right, put some brakes back on this thing. $18 foot-pound, which the looks like the Milwaukee has done for us. And we go to 29. That was there. Wasn't quite there, I just had to sneak them up a little bit, but that was pretty close. front mudguard. This has been cut down. The GS1000 had a mudguard that, you know, covered half of the wheel. Someone's taken to this with a grinder. I don't know where you guys get these ideas. Right, mudguard on. Bring the brake pads up. Nice. That means we can get rid of our block of wood. Right, bike sitting on its wheels with brakes, front wheel bearings done. That part's good to go. Alright, I want to have a look behind this engine cover. When I came back from the test ride, it was leaking a lot of oil. So I need to have a bit of a look in there, and all the bolts are loose. Always a good sign. And there's a couple of odd screws. Either that or these two screws are right and the socket-headed cap screws are not right. I don't know. A little bit of resistive magnetic force. There we go. So, happy days. Seriously. I was expecting to see a lot more oil in there than that, and there is oil in there, and that's because these stators, they get hot. Yeah, I was expecting to see a lot more oil in there than that. This has had a weld repair in the bottom. This stator has been out, and I can tell that because of the heads of the screws have been cammed out. It was probably a impact Phillips head driver rather than using a JIS driver like they should have been doing. My suspicion is that they removed it to weld up that bit in the case in the bottom down there. Now, these GS1000s do have an inherent issue with these stators. They have a problem with them burning out. I'm just having a quick look at it here. I can't see any serious discoloration that would indicate that that has been the case, and the fact that it was charging the battery at a healthy rate indicates to me that this is okay. But when we do get this back together finally, I can do some tests using an oscilloscope, and I can show you the waveform and how these things function. Because what they do, you have permanent magnets in the rotor here, and as the negative positive passes by these windings, it induces a current, and being negative positive, it's an alternating current. So it puts out 3 phases of alternating current, and that goes to the regulator rectifier. So it rectifies that alternating current and converts it to a direct current, and then it regulates it down to your charging voltage, your system's design voltage, and all of that they create quite a fair bit of oomph out of these things, and the bike doesn't consume the amount of power that the alternator is putting out, generally speaking. So they have a few tricks up their sleeve how to mitigate that. They'll switch off one of the phases with a headlight, for example. That's a common practice. They'll run some power to ground, to the frame. They use heat sinks. So there is methods for managing that, but ultimately, if it's too much, the regulator rectifier fails, and 9 times out of 10 it will fail and take out the goddamn stator at the same time. Or the stators just get hot themselves, and they can potentially burn out. What breaks down the insulation on the coil, on the windings, and then that causes them to short out. It is an inherent issue with the GS1000s. This one, on the surface at least, without testing, does not appear to be a failed stator or anything, and the fact that we were getting charged in the battery at a good rate indicates to me that we're probably okay. But like I said, once I go to put this back together properly and we start the engine again, I can hook up my lab scope and give you a look at how that all functions. Just none of the magnets have migrated. Like I said, I was really expecting to see a lot more oil leak in there. Because these do run hot, they spray them, mist them with a bit of oil to try and mitigate that heat, carry it back through the oil cooling through the motor, pull a bit of heat out of the stator. So there's always going to be oil under this cover. The initial inspection would indicate that the the gasket is not the best, and as you saw, the bolts were loose. So that's the reason why it was leaking. So it's nothing catastrophic, which I guess is good news, because I was sort of half expecting I was going to have to strip all that starter motor gear train out of the way and get that pulley off and try and get the seal out of the end of the crankshaft and replace it, but it appears that it's fine. So, a bit of shopping to do. I also replaced the speedo cable. Sorry, I didn't replace it. I refitted the speedo cable. When I offered this up to the instrument cluster, the end of the knurled section broke, and it's a bit ordinary looking anyway. That flared area there is broken away, so I'll replace it too. I've got a new choke cable to fit. So I think the best approach here is I'll order some gaskets. I'll get a new tapper cover gasket at the same time, and new speedo cable, and then when I return next, we'll put the thing together. I think I'll put the I'll assemble the fuel tap and the sender unit into the fuel tank, fit that up, get the motor back together, get it started again, and take it for another ride, because it's going to be a very different bike. I think now that we've got the new wheel bearings, the front forks have been refurbished, it's got new bearings on the steering stem, brakes functioning at the front now. I think it'll be a very different bike to the one I rode on that first ride. So I think I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment, and I'll catch you next time, eventually, on Andy's Motorcycle Obsessions. Bye for now.